Hello, Captains. Hope you're having a wonderful day, and boy, do we have a bunch of Star Trek Online news that has recently been released. So I just checked the webpage today to see what new news has come out, and lo and behold, there is a ton of new information about Victory is Life, the new expansion coming this summer in Star Trek Online. So it is April 18th. And I am going to give you the lowdown on all the latest relevant news in Star Trek Online. Let's start at the top here. 2 new discount packs for Victory is Life. So similar to other expansion releases, there will be these packs where they give you a bunch of stuff for money, real money that you have to spend. Of course, you don't have to, it's optional. But if you do, you get a whole bunch of stuff. There's going to be a starter pack and then just the regular pack, which is going to be very expensive. So we will read this here and just go over quickly what these packs include, and I will give you the price, and then you can decide if you want to purchase those packs or not. Every day we get closer to the summer launch of the newest expansion of Star Trek Online, Victory is Life. But when the expansion comes, will you be ready? If you want a head start on everything the brand new Jem'Hadar faction has to offer, we've got some offers. We've got some offers available right now to help you out. They're called the Gama Vanguard Starter Pack and the Gama Vanguard Pack. And here's the breakdown of what they offer. You can pre-order both of these packs right now and have your items drop as soon as Victory is Life goes live. We can't wait for you to experience all the new items. So here's the starter pack. Let's go quickly to the price so you can know what we're looking at for $20. $19.99. Add it to cart, blah, blah, blah. This is what you get in the starter pack. You get a Tier 6 Jem'Hadar Vanguard Dreadnought Cruiser. You get a playable Jem'Hadar Vanguard species. So I guess that means you get to play as a Jem'Hadar Vanguard, which apparently is different than just a regular Jem'Hadar, which is what I was reading about here. So the Jem'Hadar Vanguard is going to have specific traits that are different and supposedly better than a regular Jem'Hadar. And you're going to get the costume Jem'Hadar tactical uniform. And then you get 2 title choices. Those are very small things. So really what you're getting is a free Tier 6, well, it's not free. You're paying $20 to get a Tier 6 Jem'Hadar Vanguard Dreadnought Cruiser. You're getting to be able to play the Jem'Hadar Vanguard species, and you're getting the costume. That's what you get for the starter pack. Here is the Jem'Hadar Vanguard Dreadnought Cruiser. It is a flagship of the Dominion Fleet, but that's what it looks like. Here's the Jem'Hadar Vanguard species. And reading these, it seems that the Vanguard is different. The Vanguard are designed for the most intense combat encounters and feature enhanced space combat techniques. Their enhanced combat training has made them incredibly effective at defeating their opponents through superior offensive capability on both ground and space. This is only available when choosing to create a Dominion captain. So whatever that means, that's how that works. Then you get the costume, which is what you see here on them. And then the 2 titles. And so there's a summary right here on this page that's basically shows that. You get the ship, playable Jem'Hadar Vanguard species, tactical uniform, and the 2 title choices. And that's going to be $20. So that's the starter pack. Or you can go full bore and go on and get the Gama Vanguard pack. This one includes everything. First, I'm going to show you what it all has, and then I'll show you the price. So here's what this pack has. This pack has a Tier 5 Jem'Hadar Dreadnought carrier, a Tier 5 Jem'Hadar Heavy Escort carrier, a Tier 6 Jem'Hadar Vanguard Raider, a Tier 6 Jem'Hadar Vanguard Dreadnought Cruiser, a Tier 6 Jem'Hadar Vanguard Warship, a Tier 6 Cardassian Intel Science Dreadnought, a Tier 6 Cardassian Intel Flight Deck Cruiser, and a Tier 6 Cardassian Intel Escort. You also get the playable Cardassian species. So you can play as a Cardassian aligned with, I'm going to guess, the Federation or KDF. But it's a playable Cardassian species. Then you get a playable Jem'Hadar Vanguard species. So that's the same as a starter pack there. That's your Vanguard species. You get the costume, of course. You get 3 high-end upgrade kits. You get 2 large XP boosts. And then you get a ton of title choices. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 new title choices. So if we count, we get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 starships. 8 starships. 2 are Tier 5 and 6 are Tier 6. That's a lot of starships in this package. So you basically get all the starships that are going to come with this expansion. Now, what does that cost you? Well, that is going to cost you a whopping $130. Not a cheap thing at all. $130. But of course, you are getting 8 starships. And you get to play as a Cardassian and a Jem'Hadar Vanguard and a costume and other things. So here's all the ships. It lists all the ships here, and it really is a lot of ships when you look at it. Cardassian ships and Jem'Hadar ships. So you get to fly as either kind of ship you want, I guess. Playable Cardassian species. It says Cardassians have decided to help the Alliance by joining the ranks of Starfleet and the Klingon Defense Force. Players will gain access to create a Cardassian captain in either major faction with this new addition to the list of species available. So that means the Cardassians will either be aligned with KDF or Starfleet, just like the Romulan faction is. And then, of course, you have the playable Jem'Hadar Vanguard species. With the launch of Victory is Life, players will be able to freely choose to create a standard Jem'Hadar warrior, but also available are the Jem'Hadar Vanguard. Jem'Hadar Vanguard are designed for the most intense combat encounters and feature enhanced space combat techniques. So these are going to be, they're going to have offensive abilities beyond the regular Jem'Hadar warriors. So there's actually going to be 3 playable species in a way. There's going to be the Cardassians, the regular Jem'Hadar warrior, and then the Jem'Hadar Vanguard. And of course, you can get the Vanguard through the starter pack or this more expensive pack here. That's how you get that one. So if you're interested in a Jem'Hadar, you probably want to go with the Vanguard because it's going to be the better one anyway. But the option's there. If you don't want to spend any money, of course, this is still a free-to-play game. You would just be able to have a Jem'Hadar warrior, the regular Jem'Hadar. And I don't know if you will have access to the playable Cardassian as free-to-play. It doesn't sound like you will. So that will be interesting. I think you might only get the Jem'Hadar warrior as free-to-play. I think you might have to actually pay to get the Cardassian species. So, but we'll see. We'll see when it all comes out, of course. But that's what it sounds like to me. Correct me if I'm wrong. You get the Jem'Hadar tactical uniform here, of course. XP things, high-end upgrade kits, and titles. So that's $130 for that. But basically what that's paying for is just a ton of ships. So what are those ships? Well, there is the Tier 5 Jem'Hadar Dreadnought Carrier. That's what it looks like. I'm not going to go over all the specs and all that right now, but that's what it looks like. That's the Tier 5 Jem'Hadar Heavy Escort Carrier. This is the Tier 6 Jem'Hadar Vanguard Raider. Here's the Tier 6 Jem'Hadar Vanguard Dreadnought Cruiser. Here's the Tier 6 Jem'Hadar Vanguard Warship. And then you get Cardassian ships. Tier 6 Cardassian Intel Science Dreadnought. This is the Tier 6 Cardassian Intel Flight Deck Cruiser. And then the Tier 6 Cardassian Intel Escort. You can, of course, pause it on each of those and read a little bit about it. But those are the ships you're going to get in this big package here. And then here is the Cardassian you can see in the Starfleet uniform and the KDF uniform, showing that it will be aligned with either faction, just like the Romulan is done. And then, of course, here's the Vanguard. This is the not the warrior, but this is the Vanguard, the Cardassian Vanguard species, and the uniform that comes with that Vanguard. And then this just shows that the Jem'Hadar tactical uniform can be worn on KDF or Romulan as well. So that's what it looks like on different characters there. I kind of like the looks of that uniform. It's very cool looking. Especially that female Romulan, I think. Or is that a human? Whatever she is. It looks good on her. Now here's what the Vanguard Extras are. You get 2 large XP boosts, 3 high and upgrade kits, title Vanguard... titles. Okay, so that's just the stuff you get with the pack. I don't actually know what the Vanguard perks will be yet, but anyway, that's just about the 2 packs here. Starter pack $20, the other pack $130. Now again, you do not have to purchase these at all to play Victory is Life coming out, this expansion coming out this summer. It's not necessary to purchase these. You're still going to be able to play as a Jem'Hadar, but probably just the Jem'Hadar warrior. You're still going to have access to the ships through the C store. You can always go there and just purchase a ship individually. And you're still going to have access to all the missions that are coming out related to this. So it's like you don't have to buy this to get that stuff. All that these are packs to buy everything if you just want the easy way out of just getting everything at once. Because if you wait and buy all the ships in the C store later, it could end up being more expensive that way if you do that. This usually you save a little bit of money buying them all as a pack right now. But if you don't need all those ships, then it is a waste of money. So, you know, you would just buy the one ship or whatever you need. The fact that the full pack comes with tier 5 ships could be useful for somebody that has just come from free to play and is moving into a lifetime account or so, or something like that. There's some new tier 5 ships there that might benefit them. But anyway, that's what's going to be available. Again, you don't have to purchase the packs to do Victory is Life. This is just a way for Cryptic to sell you a bundle of items that you can get separately later on in the game, but you can also buy them together as a pack now. Just an easier way to do it as a bundle. So that's no shock there. They did the same thing with the last expansion, the original series, and then the last one before that, Delta Rising, and then the last one before that, the Romulan expansion. Every expansion they've had these packs. So that's nothing new there. And the prices, again, that's nothing new either. I think the last one was about $130. So not really a big shocker there. We expected that, actually. But that's what is coming, so that's optional. You can get that. Let's go on here to the next thing. Deep Space Nine is getting an overhaul. We kind of saw this coming too, considering this whole thing is going to be dealing with the Cardassians, Jem'Hadar, Deep Space Nine stuff. Deep Space Nine would need a revamp. Hoo boy, this has been a long time coming, but man, is it ever exciting. So, how do you guys feel about a tough little station near the wormhole to the Gama Quadrant? Yeah, we love it too, and we thought it was time to give her a little love. We've had a Deep Space Nine map in the game for ages now, but like other things from those days, DS9 has been showing its age. There are a lot of issues with the old map that we don't need to get into, so let's talk about what we've done on the new map instead. We've rebuilt the entirety of the promenade ring to match the show. That means all of your favorite spots are there, including the ones you've already got a sneak peek at in the recent episode, The Renegade's Regret. The security office and its holding cells. In addition, we've updated or added the infirmary, the Bajoran temple, the Klingon deli, the Jumjistan, the Replimat, and of course Garrick's clothiers. Oh, and how could I have forgotten Quark's bar? Quark is fun. After all, Quark's, like everything else, has been completely rebuilt from scratch, and it is now open to the promenade on both the first and second floor. Some of you may remember that we actually started work on the white box version of this a couple of years ago, but the Iconian War finale needed more hands, and things were shifted around a bunch to make Midnight as amazing as it was. That meant that DS9 got put on hold, but it was never far from our minds. By time planning for Victoria's Life started up, and was clearly going to involve DS9, it was clear what needed to be done. Well, we all know the promenade is a full circle in the show. On stage 17 at the Paramount Studios lot, only about 140 degrees of that potential 360 degrees was made. We started with that, building the canonical section. We dug up the old white box version we'd started years ago that had already laid out the canon arc using the same technique we've used on other recent canon interiors. Since there are copies online of the floor plan of DS9 sets on stage 17, we knew what the stage layout was like. And lucky for us, Paramount is still around and shooting on stage 17. So we could go to their website and find the exact dimensions of the interior of the stage. Pair those together and we were able to create a scale map build off of that. That's all great, and we had a good handle on that canon section, but now we had to fill out the extra 220 degrees of the circle. Luckily, even for that, we could draw from the show. It's amazing how the producers of the show would redress things and shoot from odd angles to make you feel like there was much more to it. In addition, if you've watched a fair bit of Deep Space Nine, you may notice some fairly significant changes to the sets from Season 1 to Season 2. We could take some of those set redressings and change and use them to help fill out the back of the promenade. We had to fill in plenty of other areas ourselves, but keeping some canon bits here and there helps it feel like the station we saw on the show. Once the promenade hallway was laid out, we had to start making up all the various rooms. Again, we started with the canon ones. Quark's was the first big one, and it took a lot of time to get it all jived just right. Well, we had the stage plans. They aren't perfect, and it doesn't take much to have a door line up on one side of the room and have the door off on the other end of the room. Constant adjustments had to be made throughout the process. Often an object you think you've done with ends up needing to get changed once you start working on the thing next to it and realize that you left too little space for that one. That's why the white boxing mode is so key. It's far better to find out that something has to be changed while it's in a white box form than once it's got lots of finished modeling and custom textures in it. Did I mention all of the DS9 watching going on through all of this? I have seen the show in its entirety multiple times, but watching for set details is a totally different game. My memory for episodes isn't great either, so while I know that something may have been shown, I don't necessarily remember which episode it was showed in. Fortunately, there's a ton of reference. Unfortunately, some of the reference you need, like for the upper corner of that one room, are only in one shot in one of the 176 episodes they made. So I'd watch and pause and screenshot and watch and pause and screenshot over and over and over through the many, but certainly not all of DS9, trying to catch that little corner or that one console panel or a close-up of that floor look like. It's fun, but it's grueling. In the end, we have a Deep Space Nine reference folder with over 2,600 screenshots of the show, each taken by me. Back to the making of things, Quark's was a big undertaking, especially with trying not only to get the lower entrance open to the promenade, but the upper entrance as well. The upper section of Quark's were never shown very well. Even the upper promenade entrance was only really visible a handful of times. So there was a lot of building things, watching an episode, shifting things, all of the goal of trying to make sure the new Deep Space Nine represents what we saw in the show as faithfully as we could. Turns out there is a lot of unique stuff on Deep Space Nine. Unlike most of the usual Federation interiors where everything just gets copied from one spot to the next and is often made up of large wall panels, Deep Space Nine is a patchwork of little things. Yes, there's lots of reuse, but there's a lot of unique items, props, signs, whatever. While the makers of the show could go pick up an existing oddball lighting fixture or bench, we have to make all of it, and it started to be too much. That's why we have a team. Scott, Donnie, and David, my co-environment artist, all had hands in the DS9 revamp. With their help, we made the temple, the infirmary, and the security office. In addition to their efforts, we had a major boost in doing one of the more difficult tasks of any interior, the LCARs, or whatever it is that the Cardassian equivalent is called. Tim Circata Davies, our PWE EU marketing artist, came to our rescue and lent a hand by creating some outstanding replicas of various consoles and panels all over DS9, including some of the animated monitors we know so well from the show. We really could not have pulled this off without his help. So cool, I like this. At this point, we are just putting the finishing touches on everything. Our content designer started putting NPCs in last week, and it was so cool to see the whole place come to life. I am so excited to see this finally come to fruition, and for you all to get to run around, talk to Bashir and Quark, and change your outfits at Garrick's. Nick, forgive me for mispronouncing your name, Nick Duguid, Senior Environment Artist, Cryptic Studios. Well, thank you, Nick, for all the hard work on that. I like the attention to detail and the fact that he has watched the episodes over and over again, taken the screenshots with the goal of keeping the interior canon. That is much appreciated to any Star Trek fan. So, no matter how this expansion turns out, let's give kudos to those who deserve kudos. Let's give kudos to the design team here on Deep Space Nine, because it definitely sounds like they put in the extra effort to make Deep Space Nine very, 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 very well. Canon and just, looking good. So I appreciate the effort and the detail. They could have just thrown it together and not referenced the actual show, but they did. They referenced the show, they watched the videos, and they tried to match it in the game. You can't ask for more than that. That is perfect. That's exactly what we want as Star Trek fans, is to replicate what you see in the show in the game as perfectly as possible. And they did that. So kudos. We're getting a new Deep Space Nine on the interior. That's going to be awesome. Now, it did not mention anything about Ops, but I wonder if Ops will be getting an update as well. I guess we'll find out. And also, I do wonder about the exterior. I don't know what really needs to be fixed on the exterior. Maybe a little bit scaling. I think DS9 could be a little bigger when you're on the outside of it. Otherwise, I can't wait to see what they do with the interior. It's going to be very cool to see that. So there you go, DS9 Revamp coming. Okay, next big piece of news, we've got a level cap increase. We knew this was going to happen. We're going from 60 to 65. Upon the release of our next expansion, Victory is Life, all characters will find themselves capable of earning levels beyond the current cap of 60. Starting immediately, any and all experience earned will start players on the path toward the new maximum level cap of 65. It has been almost 4 years since the last time we raised the level cap in Star Trek Online, which coincided with our second expansion, Delta Rising, in 2014. Since then, the game has expanded and grown by leaps and bounds, adding hundreds of hours of gameplay and a huge number of new story-driven missions, queues, battle zones, starships, costumes, and more. The game is continuing to grow, continuing to expand, and continuing the story of the franchise that we all know and love. And this time, that is what the level cap increase is primarily meant to reflect. In addition to raising your level, Victory of Life will also raise the cap on item marks. Players will now be able to progress their equipment to Mark 15 by using upgrade tech and investing in them via item upgrade system. The technology points requirements increase at a linear rate beyond 14, and any points already present on an existing item will not be lost and can immediately be utilized to facilitate that item's progression to 15. Equipment of Mark 15 will require at least level 60 to be worn. Players already at the current level cap may begin enhancing their gear immediately when the expansion goes live. Savvy players may have already noticed that the experience required to progress from 59 to 60 is currently far less than the experience required to earn each specialization point once you have reached 60. This may cause concerns about how each level will scale past 60. Fear not, we've got you covered. While the requirements for each level past 60 are greater than those below, The difference is far smaller than the existing specialization point requirements as shown here. As you can see, the amount of experience required per specialization point is actually remaining exactly the same, despite us having given you 5 more levels to attain. Any existing specialization HP you have earned above level 60 progression you currently have earned towards a specialization point will be immediately converted to a free specialization point for your account. This means that anyone who's earned any XP beyond 60 will earn a specialization point right at the start. Progression through the existing levels in Star Trek Online is primarily accomplished by completing story missions as laid out in your captain's journal. It has become an expectation of your progression that completing one of these story missions will generally reward you with at least half of a level, generally more, making them almost always the most efficient means of earning experience and leveling up. We don't intend to upset this expectation with Victory is Life. Each of the new storyline missions being released with this expansion will grant all captains more than a half a level each, and even more if you're using an XP bonus pool, meaning that you will be well on your way to the new cap without needing to invest much outside of the central plot as it unfurls before you in the Gamma Quadrant. Each level past 60 will grant additional rewards to each captain that achieves them as seen in the following chart. Okay, so let's back up and see what we've got here. So basically we're getting a new level cap up to 65, and it appears that even though we're gaining new levels, the amount of experience per specialization point remains the same, and we are getting Mark 15 gear, and you can upgrade your gear immediately when the expansion comes out. You need to be level 60 to wear Mark 15 gear. But of course, if you've already got Mark 12, 13, or 14, you can immediately start upgrading it to 15, because you'll be wearing that at level 60. And so, yeah, so now all my Mark 14 epic gear is already behind, and everyone else's will be too. But that's the name of the game. This happens in games like this. It's happened before. This is not the first time. There was a time when Mark 10 was the highest, or Mark 11, 10 or 11. So this is not new. This has happened before, and will happen again. So that means we get better gear. So that's what you can expect there. And also, it is interesting to note that the time to progress each mission is going to give you more than half a level, which means that all you really need to do is play the main storyline to level up to max cap. You don't have to do all the extra stuff, although it is still there. So what they're doing is giving you an easy way to level cap without having to do a whole bunch of extra stuff, although you can still do all the extra stuff. Now, we are going to get some rewards in these new levels. So level 61 is going to give us a Tier 5 ship token and a Tier 5 ship upgrade token. Claim a free Tier 5 starship from any starship acquisition vendor, then apply a token to upgrade it to Tier 5U. Tier 5U ships have additional passive traits and hull capacity scaling past level 50. So we're going to get, so for those that are free-to-play players, that's a big deal right there. At level 62, we're getting a specialization qualification manual. Used to add a specialization of your choice to one bridge officer. So you can add Intel, Command, Pilot, Temporal Operative, or Miracle Worker. At level 63, we're getting a new captain ability. Each profession, engineering, science, tactical, will gain access to a rank 1 of an all-new ability for use during space combat. So a brand new space combat ability never seen before. That's interesting, and that's a passive ability or an active ability, but you get it for free when you hit level 63. I can't wait to see what that's going to be. Level 64, Elite Gama Quadrant Duty Officers. So multiple high-quality duty officers direct from the Gama Quadrant fill your roster. So we're going to get some more duty officers, and they are Elite Gama Quadrant officers. So there you go. And then at 65, Epic Admiralty Ship CUV Tane. The ship of Elam Garrick himself can be called to aid you on Admiralty missions. Let's just say you'll have earned a favor or two by the time you've reached this level. So we're going to get a free Admiralty ship, another free Admiralty ship at 65. So so each level is giving us something new. So our move from 60 to 65 will not go unfavored. This I like. So each level, even the very first one, is going to give you something new. 61, 62, 63, 64, 65, a reward at each level. So that makes wanting to level up to 65 very, very appealing. I can't wait for that. In addition to the above rewards, earning each level, we just said that. What's missing? In light of all the things that a level cap increase can be to an online game, we feel it's important to list out a few things that will not be included. No new ranks. Captains or admirals or generals have progressed quite far in their careers already. We didn't feel as though an increase of 5 levels was sufficient to warrant the inclusion of any further ranks to signify this career improvement. So even though we're going up in levels by 5, our rank will remain the same. That makes sense because we're already like fleet admirals at level 60. So I mean, it's insane the rank we actually are in game. No new ship tiers. This has been a common question asked ever since the level cap increase was first announced, but as of now, we have no intention of extending the ship rank above Star Trek Online's current Tier 6 offerings. Additional ships will always be a fact of life as this game continues growing and expanding, but we're not currently planning any upward expansion in this regard. So Tier 6 is still the highest tier ship. So you haven't wasted your money, you haven't wasted your time. Tier 6 ship is still going to be the best. It's just that you're not going to have the best gear anymore. You're going to want to go to Mark 15 Epic. No price tag. As with all the content that's been released for Star Trek Online, there will be no purchase necessary to advance beyond level 60. In fact, all of the story missions contained within the Victory of Life expansion will be free to all players. So again, free to play. You get to level up max level to 65 just like everybody else. You get to play all the new missions coming out in Victory is Life. So that's all free still. Love that. And the more things change, levels themselves are only part of the picture in Star Trek Online, while other important aspects of your character's overall progress represented by systems like specialization, reputations, item upgrades, starship mastery, and more. As these have continued to grow over the past several years, levels themselves have come to mean less and less. This level cap increase is not an attempt to change that perception or to upset expectations as to what a level means in this game. Instead, we're hoping to use this as an opportunity to show other potential players as well as Star Trek fans everywhere that this game, this rich, robust, story-driven experience is still growing, still changing, still expanding, and still waiting for them to enjoy. So yeah, making the level cap increase now up to 65 just makes the game bigger, more expanded. If you're playing it for the first time ever, it's going to be a big game to you. I mean, you're starting at 0 and you get to go all the way up to 65 now. And all this new content that's coming. I mean, just imagine for a new player who's playing for the first time just how big the game must feel to them. And it's all free. I mean, holy crap. You can't find a better deal than that. So, level cap increase, that's coming. Play as a Cardassian. With the coming of Victory is Life and its connections to Deep Space Nine, it made sense to bring about one of the longest requested features in Star Trek Online. We're adding Cardassians as a playable species for both Starfleet and the Klingon factions. Cardassians have a unique species trait and a unique optional trait. Once a dominant force, I'm not going to go over all their history here, but their trait information. Inherent species trait is called Recalled Tactics. Cardassians are well known for their photographic memory and mental strength, which is utilized during combat to recall the extensive combat training instruction. For every 5 seconds you're in combat, you will gain 1 stack of Recalled Tactics, which will increase your damage, your accuracy, and your defense. And a unique ground trait, that's space. The unique ground trait is called Superior Mental Fortitude. Increases your resistance to mind-controlling attacks, enhancing innate resistance to the effects of Confuse, Stun, and Placate. This also makes you immune to the Vulcan Nerve Pinch. So, can't wait to get more info on the Cardassian playable species. And then finally, the final 4 cast members join Victory is Life. Again, it's always good to have the actual voice actors from the show in the game. So we've got Julian Bashir, we got Garrick, we got Quark, we got Nog, we got Wayoon. Jeffrey Combs is back. Of course, he loves Star Trek. J.G. Hertzl, we got General Martok, we got Kieran Reese, Nana Visitor is back, and we got Odo himself voicing Odo. Renee, and I'm not even going to try to pronounce his last name, but Odo. Yes. And of course, Chase Masterson. And the Grand Nagus. Just kind of skimming over this. Oh, the female changeling. She is back as well. So all the voice acting, or all the actors we know from the TV show, is here now in Star Trek Online in this expansion. That's huge right there. It just brings you into the game. It makes you feel more immersive. It's immersion. It's gameplay immersion, and it's awesome. And they're actually acting their characters again once more. So you can't ask for more. I mean, that's awesome right there. So that's a lot of news today that I had to bring to you all. I just, saw all this and I was like, wow, a ton of stuff, but I have to put it out there so you all know what's coming and we know what to expect now when this expansion comes. And it sounds like to me that the expansion is not so much a playable faction, but more of just a playable character and a whole bunch of ships and some new storyline missions. And a whole bunch, and an upgrade with your specializations and your skills and your level cap and all that. So it's really not a new faction. It's like, for example, when the Romulan faction came out, that was like a faction, even though it's like half a faction. It was like a faction. It was like you played as a Romulan and it had its own storyline missions, blah, blah, blah. Even though you still had to align with KDF or Starfleet. But it sounds like this is a little different. This is not going to be like, you play as a Jem'Hadar faction. You just get to play as like a Jem'Hadar character or a Cardassian character. I think. Now, I could be wrong, but I guess we'll find out when this is all released. Or maybe there's more information to be released that we don't have yet. But that's what this is sounding like, is that they've backed off of this like faction thing, and it's more about playable character in the game. But we'll see. Anyway, when you combine the fact that you're getting all these things, DS9 revamp, you're getting the level cap increase, which includes a lot of things with that. You're getting playable Cardassian, a playable Jem'Hadar warrior, a playable Jem'Hadar Vanguard, and then tons of ships, Cardassian and Jem'Hadar, and new storyline missions on top of that. It sounds like it's the makings of a big update. I just don't know if I would call it an expansion. I would call it more of like just a really big season update. but that's just me. I would consider, when I think of an expansion, I think of what they did during the Romulan expansion, when we got the whole new Romulan faction. But I don't think that's what we're getting here from what I read. I think we're getting just more about playable characters than factions. But I could be wrong. We'll see what happens. I'm sure there's a lot more news to come out before this is released. And then, of course, once it's released, we will explore all the new things you can do in it. But that's all the news I've got for today. That's a lot right there. 40-minute video. Thank you all for watching. Stay tuned for the next one.